Hello and welcome to the show. Let's take a look at what's coming up. A state within a state. We take you to Egypt, where the army controls a vast business empire. We'll also look at the impact of the Syrian war and sanctions on its economy. And you'll get to meet Salam, a 9-year-old victim of that war. She lost both her legs but has learned to walk again after getting treatment in France. First to Egypt, where to understand the extent of the military's influence on society, you have to look at its economy. It owns all kinds of businesses and sells all sorts of products, including dishwashers and cars. They build highways and schools, and they're the country's largest farmers. It's not known just how big their industries are, but according to some estimates, they could control up to 40% of the economy. Our team there has more on the Egyptian army's vast business empire.
It's one of many cafes located along the Nile River. What sets it apart is its clientele. Soldiers often meet here, for it's the social club of Egypt's border guards. The public can also come enjoy the view, provided they pay a €3 entrance fee. The cafe is owned by the army, who runs all types of businesses.
They produce almost everything you could ever imagine, starting from pasta to olive oil to water, mineral water, to pots and pans, to kitchen stoves, to ovens, to cement, to steel and iron, to chemicals, to pyrosol, pesticides, to everything.
Professor Zineb Abul-Magd was given unprecedented access to some of these factories. The army also owns numerous farms and parcels of land across the country. However, a lack of transparency means no one knows exactly how much revenue these businesses generate, and it serves the army's interest, according to the professor.
We have $1.3 billion of aid, military aid that comes from the US annually, and that's what the Egyptian army used to rely on majorly to get for procurement. But for the last several years, the Egyptian military has been trying to diverse their procurement by purchasing weapons from China and Russia and places like this, and they rely on their civilian profit for that.
The generals say their budget is a national security issue. That's why they won't allow any parliamentary oversight. But some believe it should change now that Egypt has entered a new political era.
This is one of the problems supporters of the January revolution were asking for all the time, that we have to have transparency, especially in the economic activities, because these are not related to national security. So what's the problem in seeing what's happening there?
The Egyptian army says its prime mission is to ensure stability while fulfilling the will of its people. On the other hand, critics argue it's a state within the state, certainly a key player on the political and economic level.
Turning our attention now to spillover from the war in Syria, not just in Lebanon, but also in Iraq, where the sectarian divide is deepening. July saw more than 800 people killed in attacks. While many Iraqi officials fear that the country is sliding into a new civil war, UN Chief Ban Ki-moon has warned that Iraq is at another crossroads. Olivia Salazar-Winspear reports.
Burnt-out cars, buildings ravaged by bomb blasts in this Shia area of Baghdad. An al-Qaeda attack that they say is a show of solidarity for the Sunni community. Since the beginning of this year, some 3,000 people have died in terror attacks in Iraq, many of them overwhelmingly sectarian in nature. Some say the bloodbaths down to the radicalization of Sunni militias who've been galvanized by the activity of Sunni rebels across the border in Syria.
We can say that the civil war in Syria, with its sectarian consequences, really set off this mission for revenge from the Sunni community in Iraq, which had been in power for more than a century, most notably under Saddam Hussein. And now they find themselves marginalized by the Shiites who came to power after the American occupation of the country.
A conflict that's descending into a more generalized sectarian face-off, with Assad and his Shia allies pitted against the rebels and their Sunni supporters. The border between Syria and Iraq is flanked by the provinces of Anbar and Nineveh, both Sunni-majority areas. It's a porous zone, the ideal crossing for al-Qaeda jihadists and armed Sunni groups from both countries.
The situation in both Syria and in Iraq is deeply interconnected. Jihadi fighters can slip across the border very easily. And they are usually foreigners even, not Iraqi nor Syrians, who then go and carry out attacks.
The target for these Sunni fighters is the Shiites, both those in power in Iraq and Bashar al-Assad's Shia-backed Alawite minority. And it's not only Sunnis who cross the border.
More and more Iraqi Shiite fighters are going into Syria to support Bashar al-Assad. There are fewer of them than the Lebanese Hezbollah fighters because certainly they are not as organized. They don't have that experience in urban guerrilla combat. But they are mobilized around Shiite religious areas, especially Aleppo.
Armed groups of Shiites pouring into Syria and Sunnis looking to destabilise the Shia power base in Iraq. The pressure's now on Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki to assuage tensions and try to stop the war in Syria spilling over into Iraq in what could become a larger regional battlefield.
Looking at some of the domestic consequences of the war in Syria now, residents of the capital Damascus try to go about their daily lives as best as possible. But the war and international sanctions mean that many basic products are hard to come by. Let's take a look at the lengths some small business owners go to get by.
It's a daily ritual in Damascus, going to buy bread for the family. Bread's one of the only foodstuffs that's still readily available. It's subsidised by the state, along with other basic products. Prices for everything else, however, in markets and supermarkets have shot up because of the conflict. Before the war, Syria was flourishing with a 6% growth rate. Now the country's economy is on its knees. The largest problem is getting merchandise into Damascus, as vehicles are often targeted by rebel snipers. Ammar Sinan sells medical equipment. Since the start of the war, he's lost 90% of his business and had to shut 2 of his offices.
These, for example, are Space Labs monitors. They were supposed to be delivered to Homs, but we couldn't deliver them because of the situation. The hospital was destroyed. And
he's left with 9 of his former 30 employees. The business can't receive any more deliveries because they're in a combat zone. By coming to work every day, these remaining members of staff are risking their lives. The office is often surrounded by fighting. Just like their old warehouse in the outskirts of the capital, it's now been abandoned. The remaining stock was brought back here to an old office. It's also where Ammar Sinan lives these days, hidden away. Ammar could simply close down the business and lay off all of the staff, but he says that would be giving up.
We are suffering. We're just controlling our losses. So we cannot just close down. We have a social commitment towards our society, towards our people.
Sonia Kanji owns a small cosmetics business, but for 3 months she hasn't been able to manufacture anything because she can't access any of the base components. International sanctions have cut off her supplies.
The Italian government has implemented an absolute embargo, a complete embargo. They'll even be sanctioned if they send me an email.
Sonia employs around 40 people in the factory and the salon, but without any more deliveries, she may have to shut up shop soon.
These sanctions, who are they affecting ultimately? Are they affecting the regime? Not at all. They're affecting civilians. They're affecting business owners. They're affecting employees, normal workers.
In the meantime, she's asked her staff to choose between a 40% pay cut or a redundancy plan.
Time now to introduce you to Salam, a 9-year-old Syrian girl who sought refuge in Jordan. She's received medical treatment here in France after losing both of her legs in a bombing back home. France 24's Chris Moore went to meet her and sent us this report.
Northern Jordan, home to an ever-growing number of Syrian refugees. Among them, 9-year-old Salam and her 12 siblings. In July last year, she lost both her legs following a bombardment between Damascus and Deraa. She recalls the moment the warplanes arrived.
We were following Mum and running towards the shelter. We were just behind her, in front of the door. And then I felt the explosion.
Salam's sister died of her injuries. She was taken to the local hospital, her limbs crushed, but it wasn't until she arrived in Deraa that doctors were able to amputate.
The local medics said they couldn't do anything because they didn't have the materials, so we took her to the state hospital in Deraa. They made us sign a piece of paper before they treated her, saying that the rebels were behind the attack.
She was in hospital for a month. Then her brothers brought her here. I can't describe how I felt. It was as if she was half a person.
This team of medics works for the French charity La Chaîne de l'Espoir. They've been assessing Salam's injuries.
Little Salam has had a double leg amputation. We're going to try and fit her with prosthetic limbs so she can walk again.
And that means a trip to see specialists in Paris. Salam is one of 6 Syrian children being flown to France for treatment. Charles de Gaulle Airport, a 4.5-hour journey over, and Salam arrives to meet her host family. It's the second time this Franco-Syrian and his mother have put up children hurt in a brutal civil war.
They need families to look after them, and that's what we're here for. They're children from a country where the situation is just catastrophic.
The next morning, it's off to a clinic in the west of the French capital. Prosthetic technician Marielle Kazan gets to work on the measurements and plaster casts needed to mould the artificial limbs. With Salam set to fly back to Jordan once they've been fitted, precision is more important than ever.
In general, prosthetic limbs last a year, but you have to readjust them, adapt them regularly, almost once every 3 months. We can't do that in this case, so there's a lot of anticipation involved. And there's a team from Handicap International over there who can take over from us.
A fortnight later, and the limbs are ready. Until now, Salam's only been able to visit Paris in a wheelchair, and she's eager to try them on.
Where should we go today then?
Up the Eiffel Tower.
The Eiffel Tower? Okay then.
There's some final instructions from the technician, and Salam is ready to stand before taking a first few tentative steps. It's been a year now since her legs were amputated, and these new limbs are going to take some getting used to. But Salam's relief is palpable. A small success story for one victim of Syria's tragedy, but operations like these cost at least €10,000 per child, and the number of injured is increasing by the day.
Well, that's it for this week's show. Thanks for watching. Do stay tuned to France 24.